The roar shakes your chest before your ears even register the sound. It isn't just a noise. It's a physical vibration that freezes your blood cold. You are standing in the vineyards of Timnah. The air is thick, smelling of sweet, fermenting grapes and dry dust. The sun is beating down hard, making the horizon shimmer in the heat. It's a beautiful place, really. But right now, it feels like a death trap. Suddenly, the bushes to your left explode. It's not a shadow. It's not a stray dog. It is a young lion, fully grown, in the prime of its life. We aren't talking about a lazy zoo animal behind glass. This is a wild Asiatic lion. 400 pounds of muscle, teeth, and pure aggression. It locks eyes with you. It lowers its head. It's ready to kill. Now, imagine standing there. You have no weapon, no spear, no sword, no shield. You don't even have a heavy stick to defend yourself. You are completely exposed. In any normal story, this is where you die. This is where the screen fades to black and the credits roll. But standing in the path of that beast is a man. He looks different. He's young, maybe in his 20s. He has a swagger about him, a confidence that borders on arrogance. But the first thing you notice is the hair. It's long, really long. It's braided into 7 thick locks that cascade down his back, dancing in the hot wind. Men don't wear their hair like this. Not warriors. It looks like something you could grab in a fight. It looks like a liability. The lion doesn't care about the hair. It sees fresh meat. With a terrifying snarl, the beast launches itself into the air. Claws extended, mouth wide open. It's a blur of tawny fur and death coming straight for his throat. Then, something impossible happens. The Bible describes it with a specific electric phrase. The Spirit of the Lord rushed upon him. Judges 14:6. It wasn't that he did a few push-ups that morning. It wasn't just adrenaline. It was a supernatural invasion. You can almost see the air ripple around him. 1 second, he is a mortal man. The next, he is a vessel for raw, divine power. He doesn't run. He doesn't scream for help. He steps into the attack. His hands, empty, bare hands, shoot out. He catches the lion mid-air. Imagine the force of that collision. It should have shattered his ribs. It should have knocked him flat. But he stands like a stone pillar rooted in the earth. The sound is sickening. It's the sound of tearing. The text says he ripped the lion apart, as one tears a young goat. Think about the violence of that for a second. He didn't choke it out. He didn't break its neck with a clean snap. He literally tore it open with his bare hands. It is brutal. It is visceral. It is terrifyingly violent. And then, silence. The dust settles. The lion lies broken on the ground, lifeless. The man stands over it, chest heaving, hands stained with blood. The supernatural energy lifts, leaving him standing there in the quiet vineyard, alone with what he just did. He looks at the carcass. He looks at his hands. And here is the strangest part of this whole opening scene. He doesn't tell anyone. He doesn't run back to his parents, who are just down the road, and scream, "You won't believe what just happened." He doesn't drag the body back to the village to show off to his friends. He leaves it there. He wipes his hands and keeps the secret. Why? Maybe he was confused. Maybe he knew he wasn't supposed to be in a vineyard in the first place. Nazirites aren't supposed to be near grapes, remember? Or maybe, just maybe, he was beginning to understand that his life wasn't going to be normal. He was realizing that he carried something dangerous inside him. This wasn't just a fight with an animal. This was a picture of his entire life. Samson was a man of conflict. He was a man walking where he shouldn't walk, fighting battles alone, and carrying secrets that would eventually crush him. See, we usually tell this story to kids in Sunday school. We show pictures of a smiling muscle man hugging a lion. But this isn't a kid's story. This is an R-rated action thriller. It's gritty, it's messy, and it's tragic. The Israel of Samson's time was a dark place. There was no king. There was no order. The Philistines were the bullies on the block, and they had their boot on Israel's neck. They had iron technology. They had organized armies. They had the economy, the weapons, and the power. Israel had nothing. They were farmers and shepherds hiding in the hills. They had given up. They weren't even praying for deliverance anymore. They were just trying to survive. They had accepted their slavery. God looked at this situation, his people crushed, hopeless, and leaderless, and he decided to intervene. But he didn't send an army. He didn't send a politician. He didn't send a general with a brilliant tactical map. He sent a one-man wrecking crew. He sent a man who was a walking contradiction, a man who was set apart for God, but loved the things of the world, a man who was physically invincible but emotionally fragile, a man who could kill a lion with his bare hands but couldn't kill his own lust. That moment in the vineyard, that was just the warm-up. That was just the trailer for the movie. Samson was about to go on a rampage that would shake the foundations of the ancient world. He was going to embarrass an empire. He was going to turn the Philistine army into a joke. He was going to act as a judge, a warrior, and an avenger. But looking at him now, walking away from the dead lion, wiping the blood on his tunic, you have to wonder, can a man carry this much power without destroying himself? The sun sets over the valley. The shadows get long. Samson walks toward the city of Timnah, toward a woman he shouldn't want, toward a destiny he can't escape. But before the jawbone, before the gates of Gaza, before the collapse of the temple, we have to understand where he came from. We have to understand the miracle that started it all. Because Samson wasn't just born, he was announced. He was a project of heaven before he was ever a problem on earth. To really get who this guy is and why his fall is so heartbreaking, we need to rewind the tape. We need to go back to a quiet house, to a woman who couldn't have children, and to a visitor who brought news that sounded absolutely crazy. Everything started with a promise, and a set of rules that seemed impossible to keep. To really get why Samson was such an earthquake of a man, you have to understand the ground he was standing on. We are in the Shephelah. That's just a fancy word for the foothills, the rugged borderlands between the mountains of Israel and the coastal plains of the Mediterranean. It was a buffer zone, a place of friction. On the high ground, you had the Israelites. They were simple people, farmers, shepherds, hill folks. They lived in small villages, used bronze tools, and tried to scrape a living out of the rocky soil. They were isolated and, honestly, a bit backward compared to their neighbors. Down on the coast, you had the Philistines, and these guys were the superpower. They weren't locals, they were invaders from the sea, ancient Greeks who had crashed the party in Canaan, and they brought something with them that changed the game completely: iron. While Israel was still trying to sharpen soft bronze swords that bent if you hit them too hard, the Philistines had mastered iron smelting. They had iron chariots, which were basically the tanks of the ancient world. They had iron spears, iron armor, and a professional, organized military. In a fight, bronze against iron isn't a battle, it's a slaughter. Because of this tech gap, the Philistines dominated everything. They controlled the trade routes. They controlled the economy. The Bible tells us that later on, they didn't even allow a single blacksmith to operate in Israel. If an Israelite farmer wanted to sharpen his plow, he had to go down to a Philistine city and pay them to do it. That is total domination. It's humiliating. For 40 years, that's 2 whole generations, Israel had been under the Philistine boot. Imagine growing up in a world where you've never seen your flag fly high. You pay taxes to a foreign king. You see their soldiers walking through your market, taking what they want. You learn to keep your head down. You learn that resistance is futile. The spirit of Israel was broken. In other stories, like Gideon's, the people cried out to God. But here, silence. They had gotten used to the dark. They were comfortable in their chains. Socially, it was a mess. This was the time of the judges. The slogan of the era was, "In those days there was no king in Israel. Everyone did what was right in his own eyes." It was the Wild West. No central government, no police, just tribal anarchy. Morality was a suggestion, not a rule. People worshipped Yahweh on Saturday and Baal on Sunday. It was a spiritual buffet. And right in the middle of this hopeless, compromised mess lived a woman. We don't know her name. The Bible just calls her Manoah's wife, but she is the rock star of this opening act. She was barren. In that culture, having no kids was the ultimate heartbreak. It meant shame. It meant your family line died with you. So you have a barren woman in a barren nation. One day she's out in the field and a man appears. He looks like an angel. Actually, the text says his appearance was awesome, which is an old word for terrifying. He drops a bomb. You're going to have a son. But there's a catch, a big one. This kid isn't going to be normal. He is to be a Nazirite from the womb. Now we need to unpack that. A Nazirite vow was usually a temporary thing people did to get close to God, like a 30-day spiritual detox. But this kid was drafted for life. The rules were strict. 1. No grapes, no wine, no juice, not even a raisin. He had to be stone cold sober. In a culture where wine was the center of every feast and celebration, this meant he would always be an outsider. He couldn't toast at weddings. He couldn't relax with the guys. 2. No dead bodies. He couldn't touch a corpse. Not a human, not an animal. He had to be ritually pure, representing the god of life. 3. No haircuts. The razor could never touch his head. His hair was his crown, the visible badge of his contract with God. Usually you volunteer for this. Samson was assigned. He didn't choose the holy life. The holy life chose him. So, picture this kid growing up in the camp of Dan. He's got long hair braided down his back. He can't eat what the other kids eat. He's weird. He's different. And then the power starts. The Bible says, "The Spirit of the Lord began to stir him." The Hebrew word for stir there is violent. It's like a drum beat. It's a pounding in the chest. Imagine a teenager walking through the hills of Zorah, looking down at the Philistine cities in the valley. He sees their lights. He hears their music. He feels the pull of their world. But then, boom, the Spirit hits him. He feels a strength that scares him. He rips a tree out of the ground. He pushes a boulder that 5 men couldn't move. His parents must have watched him with a mix of pride and absolute terror. They knew they were raising a weapon. But there was a problem. Samson didn't act like a holy man. He didn't hang out at the tabernacle. He hung out at the border. He liked the Philistines. He liked their style. And most dangerously, he liked their women. The stage is set for a collision. On one side, the mighty ironclad Philistine Empire. On the other, a broken Israel. And in the middle, a wild, long-haired boy who was about to start a one-man war that nobody asked for. God was about to pick a fight. And he was going to use Samson's bad attitude to do it. Let's talk about the man. If you close your eyes and picture Samson, what do you see? Probably a bodybuilder. Someone who looks like The Rock. Huge biceps, massive chest, veins popping out. That's how he's always drawn in the cartoons. But think about it for a second. If he looked like a giant wall of muscle, why was his strength a secret? If a guy weighs 300 pounds and is all muscle, you don't need to ask, "Hey, why are you so strong?" You know why. It's because he's huge. But the Philistines were constantly baffled. They kept asking, what is the secret of his great strength? This suggests something fascinating. Samson might have looked normal. Maybe he was average height. Maybe he was wiry. The only thing weird about him was the hair, 7 long locks braided down his back. That makes him way scarier. Imagine a regular-looking guy who grabs a lion and rips it in half. That's not physics. That's supernatural. That's God invading a human body. Inside, Samson was a mess of contradictions. He is the ultimate anti-hero. He was a top loner. You never see him leading an army. Gideon had 300 men. David had his mighty men. Samson, he worked alone. He fought alone. He lived alone. He was the original army of one. He was smart. We think of him as a dumb brute, but he loved riddles. He loved wordplay. He was a poet. With the jawbone of a donkey, heaps upon heaps. That's a pun in Hebrew. He liked to mock his enemies, to outsmart them before he outfought them. He had a dark, sarcastic sense of humor. But emotionally, he was a child. He had 0 impulse control. If he saw something he wanted, he took it. Get her for me, for she pleases my eyes. That was his dating strategy. He didn't care about character or politics or God's law. He cared about what he saw. He was driven by his appetites. Hunger, lust, anger. He felt things intensely. When he was angry, he burned down cities. When he was lonely, he risked his life to sleep with the enemy. His relationship with his parents was tragic. They loved him. They were the only ones who really knew his secret, but they couldn't control him. They watched their miracle baby turn into a rebellious wild man. You can hear the heartbreak in his father's voice. Is there no woman among the daughters of your brethren? But Samson didn't want a nice Israelite girl. He wanted the forbidden fruit. And this brings us to his faith. Samson is listed in the Hall of Faith in the New Testament, so we know he believed. But his faith was weird. He treated God like a vending machine. Lord, I'm thirsty, give me water. Lord, give me strength one more time. He didn't seem to want a relationship with God. He just wanted the power God gave him. He broke the rules of his vow constantly. He touched the dead lion to get honey. He went to drinking feasts, but he kept the hair. It was like he thought, as long as I keep the hair, I can get away with the rest. He was superstitious. He thought he had a loophole. Deep down, I think Samson was desperately lonely. He was set apart from birth. That sounds holy, but it feels like isolation. He couldn't fit in with his own people. They were scared of him. He couldn't really fit in with the Philistines. They wanted to kill him. So he sought comfort in the arms of dangerous women. He wanted to be loved for him, not for the deliverer of Israel title. That's why he kept telling his secrets. He wanted intimacy. He wanted someone to know the real him. But every time he opened up, he got burned. His first wife betrayed him for her family. The men of Judah, his own tribe, betrayed him and handed him over to the enemy. Delilah betrayed him for money. It's a sad pattern. The strongest man in the world was also the most vulnerable. He could protect Israel, but he couldn't protect his own heart. He was a man carrying a burden too heavy for him. He was a flawed vessel, a cracks-filled pot that held a divine treasure. And yet, despite the arrogance, the lust, and the anger, God used him. That's the most hopeful part of his character. God didn't wait for Samson to get his act together. God used him in his mess. But you can only play with fire for so long. Samson thought he was invincible. He thought he could handle the sin. He thought, I'm Samson, I'm special. The rules don't apply to me. He was wrong. He was walking a tightrope over a canyon, and the wind was picking up. He had survived the lion. He had survived the army. But he was about to meet an enemy he couldn't hit with a fist. He was heading to the Valley of Sorek, and for the first time in his life, his strength wasn't going to be enough to save him. Let's look at the scoreboard. Samson had already proven that physical battles were a joke to him. Remember the jawbone? That wasn't a fight. It was a massacre. The Philistines had surrounded him. His own people had tied him up with new ropes and handed him over. It looked hopeless. 1,000 soldiers against one bound man. But when the spirit hit him, those ropes melted like wax. He grabbed a fresh donkey jawbone from the dirt, heavy, dense bone, and went to work. He didn't just kill them, he humiliated them. He piled them up. He made a rhyme about it. He showed them that their iron swords and armor meant nothing against the power of God. So, the Philistines knew, we can't beat him in a fight. If you send an army, he destroys it. If you lock him in a city, like they did in Gaza, he rips the gates off the hinges and carries them up a hill. He was physically unstoppable, so they needed a new plan. They needed to attack him where he was weak. Not his muscles, but his soul. They found their weapon in the Valley of Sorek. Her name was Delilah. Now understand the stakes. The 5 lords of the Philistines came to her. They didn't offer pocket change. They offered 100 pieces of silver each. That's 5,500 pieces of silver. A normal worker made about 10 pieces a year. This was 550 years of wages. This was buy a kingdom money. It shows how terrified they were. They were willing to bankrupt their treasury to stop this one man. Delilah took the deal, and the trap was set. This wasn't a battle of swords. It was a siege of the heart. Samson was in love. He was comfortable. He was sleeping in the enemy's camp, thinking he was safe. The interrogation began. Tell me the secret of your strength. At first, Samson played games. Tie me with bowstrings. Snap. Tie me with new ropes. Snap. Weave my hair in the loom. Rip. He was flirting with disaster. Every time he lied, he got closer to the truth. He was like a moth flying closer to the candle flame. He thought he was in control. He thought, I can handle her. It's just a game. But Delilah wasn't playing. She dropped the ultimate weapon. How can you say I love you when your heart is not with me? She nagged him. The Bible says she pestered him daily with her words and pressed him so that his soul was vexed to death. Think about that, vexed to death. He was emotionally suffocated. He couldn't sleep. He couldn't think. The strongest man on earth was being crushed by words. He faced a choice, keep his vow to God or make his girlfriend happy. He chose the girl. He told her, I have been a Nazirite from my mother's womb. If I am shaven, then my strength will leave me. The moment the words left his mouth, he was finished. He had given away the key. He had sold his birthright for a moment of peace. He fell asleep on her lap. A barber came in. Snip, snip, snip. 7 locks of hair fell to the floor. The symbol of his covenant was gone. Delilah shouted, The Philistines are upon you. Samson woke up, and he thought the most tragic thought in the Bible. I will go out as at other times and shake myself free. He stood up to fight. He flexed, but nothing happened. The text says, he did not know that the Lord had departed from him. The battery was dead. The connection was cut. He was just a man now. A regular, middle-aged man with a bad haircut and a broken heart. The Philistines swarmed him. And this time, they didn't just arrest him. They destroyed him. They pinned him down. They took a sharp knife or a hot iron, and they gouged out his eyes. Why the eyes? Because his eyes were his problem. She looks good to my eyes. I saw a woman. He lived by sight, not by faith, so the enemy took his sight. They dragged him to Gaza. They bound him in bronze chains, and they threw him in the prison house. He became a grinder. He was harnessed to a massive millstone, walking in circles in the dark, grinding grain. This was work for donkeys, work for slaves. The humiliation was total. The champion of Israel was now a blind pet for the Philistines. The mental torture must have been worse than the physical. I threw it all away. I betrayed God. I am useless. He was alone in the dark. No hope, no future. Just the sound of the stone grinding. Crunch, crunch, crunch. But in that darkness, something started to happen. The Philistines were looking at the man, but they forgot about the God. Samson ran his hand over his scalp. Stubble. A week later, fuzz. A month later, curls. The Bible adds a quiet little footnote. However, the hair of his head began to grow again after it had been shaven. It wasn't that the hair was magic. It was that God wasn't done. The Philistines thought they had won. They were planning a massive party to celebrate. They were going to bring him out to mock him. They didn't realize that by blinding him, they had actually fixed his vision. By binding him, they had set his spirit free. Samson was down, but he wasn't out. The final round was coming. And this time he wouldn't be fighting for a girl. He would be fighting for redemption. The day of the festival arrived. It was the Super Bowl of the ancient world. The Philistines were celebrating their god, Dagon. Our God has delivered Samson into our hands, they chanted. The temple of Dagon was packed. Thousands of people. The 5 lords were there. The generals, the priests, the celebrities. The roof was covered with 3,000 men and women looking down into the courtyard. They were drunk, they were happy, and they were cruel. "Bring out Samson," someone shouted. "Let him perform for us." The guards went to the dungeon. They dragged Samson out into the light. He stood there, blinking his scarred, empty sockets. He looked broken, a shadow of the man he used to be. The crowd roared with laughter. They threw food at him. They mocked him. He was the entertainment, the clown. But Samson wasn't listening to them anymore. He was focused. He asked the young servant boy who was leading him, "Put me where I can feel the pillars that support the temple." The boy guided him. Samson's hands touched the stone. Cold, rough, solid. These were the structural spine of the building. If they moved, everything moved. Samson stood between them, arms spread wide, like a cross. He took a deep breath. He didn't make a riddle this time. He didn't boast. He prayed. "O Lord God, remember me, I pray. Strengthen me, I pray, just this once, O God, that I may be with one blow avenged on the Philistines for my 2 eyes. Remember me." It's the prayer of a dying thief. It's the prayer of a broken man. He didn't ask to live. He asked to matter. He knew he couldn't survive this. He was signing his own death warrant. He felt it. The heat. The rush. The Spirit of the Lord flooding his body one last time. His muscles, tired from the millstone, surged with divine energy. He shouted, "Let me die with the Philistines." He pushed. A deep groan echoed through the stone. The crowd stopped laughing. Crack. The pillars didn't just slide. They shattered. Samson drove them off their bases. The roof lurched. Gravity took over. Tons of stone and timber came crashing down. The 3,000 people on the roof fell into the main hall. The walls buckled. It was chaos. Screams, dust, darkness. The temple imploded. In seconds, the entire leadership of the Philistine nation, the kings, the generals, the priests, was crushed. And buried right in the middle of them was Samson. He died, but he won. The text says, the dead that he killed at his death were more than he had killed in his life. It was a total decapitation of the enemy. He broke their power. He bought freedom for his people with his own blood. Samson's life had been a mess, but his death was a masterpiece. He finally surrendered. He finally let God take over. And in the rubble of that pagan temple, The God of Israel proved that he was the undisputed champion of the world. When the dust settled over Gaza, the world had changed. The Philistines were paralyzed. Their government was gone. Their religion was humiliated. Dagon had fallen on top of his own worshippers. This gave Israel room to breathe. The oppression lifted. Samson's family came down to get him. Imagine that walk. Walking into the ruins of the enemy city to find the body of the prodigal son. They found him. They carried him home. They buried him in the tomb of his father. He was back where he started, but his story didn't end in the grave. Samson is a warning, yes. He shows us what happens when you play with sin. He shows us that gifts don't equal character. You can be anointed and still be a fool, but he is also a hero. The New Testament puts him in the Hall of Faith in Hebrews 11. He made the list, along with Moses and Abraham. Why? Because in the end, he believed. He trusted God to do the impossible. Out of weakness, we're made strong. That's Samson's epitaph. And there is a deeper picture here. Samson is a shadow of Jesus. Think about it. Both were announced by angels. Both were separated to God. Both were betrayed for silver. Both were handed over by their own people. Both were mocked and humiliated. And both defeated the enemy by dying. Samson spread his arms and died to destroy the physical enemy. Jesus spread his arms on the cross and died to destroy the ultimate enemy, sin and death. Samson died with the wicked. Jesus died for the wicked. Samson proves that God can use anyone, even the broken, even the people who have messed up big time. If God can use Samson, he can use you. His life is a testament to the fact that failure isn't final. The hair grows back, grace returns, and God always gets the last word. So, let's bring this home. What about you? You have a Samson inside you. You have a calling. You have gifts. God has a plan for your life, but you also have a Delilah. What is your Delilah? I'm not talking about a person necessarily. I'm talking about the thing that is seducing you into surrender. Maybe it's a secret habit. Maybe it's pride. Maybe it's anger. Maybe it's just the comfort of the world, whispering to you to settle down and stop fighting. The enemy wants to put you to sleep. He wants to shave your head, to take away your strength, your distinctiveness, your power. He wants to blind you so you can't see God's vision. He wants to bind you so you can't walk in freedom. He wants to grind you down until you think you are useless. Maybe you feel like you're already there. Maybe you've blown it. You made the mistake. You told the secret. You feel like you're in the dark, pushing the wheel of regret. Listen to me. The hair grows back. That is the message of this story. God is the God of the second chance. He didn't leave Samson in the dark, and he won't leave you. Your failure is not the end of the story. It's just a plot twist. God does his best work in the dark. He builds character in the prison that he couldn't build in the palace. So, what do you need to do? First, stop the compromise. Don't wait for the razor. If you are flirting with something that is killing your spirit, cut it off now. Run. Second, lean on the pillars. Stop trying to fight in your own strength. You can't do it. Lean on the finished work of Jesus. Lean on his grace. Third, pray the prayer. You don't need to be perfect to pray. You just need to be honest. Samson's greatest victory happened when he finally admitted he was weak. Pray this with me right now. God, I'm here. I admit I've messed up. I've tried to do it my way, and I'm tired. Lord, remember me. I surrender my weakness to you. Let my faith grow back. Give me the strength to push down the walls that are holding me captive. Use me again. In Jesus' name, amen. If you prayed that, get ready. The pillars are about to fall. You are not done. You are just getting started. Go to the comments and declare it. My strength comes from the Lord. And hey, share this with someone who feels like they've failed. Remind them that the story isn't over. Subscribe for more. We'll see you in the next battle.